arms and his hands, and he starts like inching forward towards me.
So he why do you call it a fighting stance?
Well, he looks like a fighter. Like a ninja or something, I don't know.
Okay.
The case of a former ballerina accused of murdering her husband takes a stunning turn as she decided to take the stand in her own defense.
Do you remember anything about the shooting beyond what you've told us here?
It was a blur.
Ashley Benefield is on trial for the 2020 murder of her husband, Doug. The two were married for 4 years prior to the deadly shooting. And while their relationship appeared picture perfect, within a month of their quick nuptials, cracks began to show in their marriage. According to the state, Ashley Benefield shot her husband in cold blood because she wanted to be a single mother to the couple's daughter. However, the defense claims Ashley suffered years of abuse from her husband, and on the night of the shooting, she was in fear of her life after an altercation between the two. After the state presented a number of witnesses in their case, including Doug's daughter Eva, who said she didn't recall seeing her father and Ashley argue during the time she saw them together, and Doug's former attorney Stephanie Murphy, who Doug hired to help him get in contact with Ashley, who at the time hid their daughter's birth from him. When the trial turned over to the defense's case, their second witness would be Ashley Benefield herself. Right off the bat, Ashley was visibly shaken during her testimony. The defense began their line of questioning by easing into Ashley's background. She's an only child, loved the arts, and was a ballerina but retired after tearing her hamstring. Then her defense attorney, Neil Taylor, asked her about how she met Doug, as her initial impression of the man who would end up being her husband was that he was charming.
I want to ask you about Doug. When did the two of you meet?
We met August 25th of 2016.
And tell us what your impression of him was when you met.
He was very confident in who he was, passionate about what he was doing for work. He was fascinating to talk to.
What was it, if you recall in particular, that attracted you to him, Ashley?
He was funny, very smart, charming. We just instantly clicked.
Was Doug in the military?
Yes, just like my dad, he was in naval aviation.
Did he turn out to be who you thought he was?
No, not at all.
The defense quickly questioned Ashley about the night of the shooting. Ashley testified on that night Doug came over to help with their move to Maryland, but quickly became enraged at Ashley while helping her move.
I want to direct your attention, Ashley, now, if I can, to the day of the homicide, September 27, 2020.
Okay.
Specifically late in the afternoon. Would you tell us why Doug was at your home?
He came over to help load some of the larger items that my mom and I had kind of pre-staged in the garage into the U-Haul truck.
And were there any discussions between the two of you about the order that these things should be placed in the back of the truck?
Yes, we had discussed that my things would be going in last, right at the front, so they would be easy to get out first. At one point, he had me help him load one of the larger pieces into the back of the U-Haul truck. And when I was up in the truck with him, I realized that everything had been all like mixed together and it was no longer separated. And I pointed that out to him, and he got really offended and upset. He said, "It shouldn't be your stuff, my stuff, your house, my house."
Was there a particular demand he made at that time?
He said I needed to start acting like a wife.
Tell us at that point how you chose to deal with him.
I tried to change the subject. I could see how upset he was getting. So I wanted to kind of alleviate that.
And how was Doug reacting to your efforts to do that?
He was getting more upset and aggressive and threatening.
Do you attempt to avoid confrontation with him?
Yes.
What do?
I was trying to get him to leave. I kept suggesting that maybe we should be done. Saying I was tired. We should just wrap it up for the day.
And what was Doug's reaction to that effort?
He heard me, but he completely disregarded what I was saying.
Ashley, would you tell us if there came a time shortly thereafter where there was physical contact between the two of you?
Yes.
Tell us about it.
We were in the living room, and as he came up to me, instead of walking past me, he walked like right into me, like a body check. He like thumped me.
His shoulder to your shoulder?
Yes. And
And describe for us, if you can, the force of the bump.
It caught me off guard. I almost fell. I like stumbled.
How was he acting at that point?
He was clearly hostile. He was mumbling under his breath and was glaring at me.
What was your concern?
I could see that it was escalating, and I didn't want him to blow up at me.
The defense would introduce photo evidence of Doug allegedly striking Ashley prior to the shooting. Ashley says after Doug hit her, she ran to get her gun because she says she was in fear of her life.
It's a picture of my face.
Is it an accurate picture of what your face looked like on that night?
Yes, sir.
Who took that photograph?
I don't remember her name. She
Was-
was at the sheriff's office.
At the sheriff's office? Okay. Now, what is it about that photograph that shows or reflects the slap or the hit that you got to the side of your head on that day by Doug?
That side of my face is like swollen and puffy and discolored around my eye.
And is your eyelid drooping
Yes,
on the side where you were hit?
yes.
Your Honor, I move Fence Exhibit Number 7 into evidence.
Received.
What was different at that moment, Ashley, than at any time in your prior relationship with Doug?
He had never actually hit me before.
What did you do?
I ran
Where?
to my room
Why?
because I was scared.
Ashley, did you have anything in your room that could protect you?
I had my gun.
Did you grab the gun?
Yes.
As you're grabbing the gun, what, if anything, did you hear?
I heard the door hitting the doorstop.
As if it is flung open?
Yes.
And what do you see, Ashley, when you look up?
Doug was standing in the doorway. His face was red. Like the veins were bulging in his neck. The way he was looking at me, it didn't even look like Doug. His eyes were black.
Does he yell anything at you?
He said, "You're done."
What does he do at that point?
I held the gun like in front of me, and I said, "Stop." And he like turned and he got into this like a fighting stance. I got low and he started like moving his arms and his hands around. He was making these like jerking motions.
What were you expecting when you were holding the gun out in front of you and you told him to stop?
I thought when he saw it he would leave.
Did he?
No.
At that point, Ashley, what are you thinking?
I thought he was gonna kill me.
Tell us what happens next.
He started coming towards me, and then he lunged at me, and I started pulling the trigger. And he just kept coming. And I remember trying to move to get away from him, but he kept coming at me.
Ashley, would you tell us why, if you're holding a loaded firearm, you were attempting to move away?
I was trying to get away from him. I was terrified.
All right, so you're firing. He keeps advancing. What happens next?
It was like his feet slipped out from under him and his legs went up in the air.
When Doug hits the floor, what's your immediate reaction?
I ran to get help.
Can you tell us how many shots you fired?
I have no idea. I was in a panic.
Ashley and her husband were married quickly. Ashley testified Doug professed his love for her within 4 days. Then, by day 13, the two were married. But within a month of their relationship, Doug sent Ashley very intense text messages that the defense would reveal during trial.
I want to ask you what you thought and how you felt after this series of text messages where he said the following to you. And I'll go through them and you can respond.
Okay.
Like always being armed. And understanding them and how to conduct warfare in them for the kingdom. If I dwelt on it, I would go into a rage to remove them from the earth. I desire to exterminate them, and holding back is a challenge. They are rats that should be removed. Last night, just the jerks arguing near you about put me in sheer murderous mood, but I was stuck. I couldn't defend you. But could have been a fight, etc. Only you being with me will over time remove the images in my head. It is same, and knowing you were taken advantage of still in my mind makes me explode with anger to take them out. God made you for me. You haven't seen the warrior side and never want to. We went from joy and passion to now I'm in a testosterone rage inside. But kill the bad people. How long had you been married when you received these texts from Doug?
I believe it was about a month or so. Probably thereabouts.
Do you recall approximately how long you had been married?
Well, we got married in the beginning of September, and this would have been the end of November.
Okay.
So
What?
more than that, I'm sorry.
What did you think? Was there anything about those texts that caused you to pause?
You know, at the time, I kind of tried to write it off that he was my new husband and he was just trying to be kind of manly and, be protective and, was trying to show that he really loved me. I think that was kind of what I
Did you
thought
think
at the
it was
time.
flattering?
Yeah.
Ashley, how long did this facade that you've described of Doug's last?
Probably about 3 months.
And what signs did you begin to see that he was not who you thought he was?
When I got back from the cruise, he started becoming very, controlling and possessive. He started criticizing everything about me, like the way I would wear my hair or did my makeup or the way I dressed. I found myself trying to change everything about me to make him happy.
While on the stand, she also testified about another instance of abuse where she said Doug would scream at her in fits of rage.
Tell us, Ashley, how Doug would act when he would go off.
He would call it a fit of rage. Sometimes it was as simple as him just yelling and screaming at me or cussing at me, calling me names. Other times he would throw things or break things or smash things. He would come at me like he was going to hit me. He told me I was lucky that he punched walls instead of me.
Are there any incidences in particular, Ashley, that stand out to you?
Yes.
Tell us, please.
We were having an argument, and he came at me like he was going to hit me. And our dog, Sully, jumped up in between us, and he punched him in the face so hard that he knocked him out. I just remember screaming because I thought he had killed him.
Were there other times that Doug hurt the animals?
Yes, he had kicked, punched Sully. He threw our cat multiple times. One time he threw Snuffy down the stairs.
What kind of impact did this behavior have on you?
I was always walking on eggshells, trying to do the right things. Because if I said the wrong thing, he would get mad at me. And so I always tried to do it right. If I wore the wrong thing, he would call me or I feel like I couldn't do anything right.
And in one instance in 2017, a year after the two got married, Benefield said her husband threw a gun at her and fired off the gun into the ceiling of the couple's home.
Was there an incident, Ashley, in June of 2017 that you vividly recall?
Yes.
Please explain it.
We were having an argument, and it started getting really out of hand. He pulled a gun out, and he was waving it around, and then he threw it at me, and it hit the wall behind me, punched a hole in the wall. And when I went to run to try to leave, he pulled the gun out and held it to his head. He said that he was gonna blow his brains out, and I was gonna have to watch him. And he pulled the trigger and he shot a hole in the ceiling in the kitchen.
Ashley, at that point, what were you thinking about your marriage?
He wasn't anything like I thought he was. I feel like I had made a really big mistake marrying him. It was like I was just living in this nightmare. I never knew what I was going to get.
But later that year, Ashley would also find herself pregnant. Believing her life was in danger, she left and moved to her mother's house in Florida.
Did there come a time in July or August of 2017 when you found yourself with child?
Yes.
So let's be clear here chronologically. You became pregnant after this incident where you related that he shot the gun in the ceiling of the kitchen?
Yes, it would have been like right after that, I guess.
Was it planned?
No, it was the last thing on my mind at that point.
How would you deal with Doug?
I tried to do all the right things and keep him happy. Kind of just go with the flow. I didn't want to rock the boat ever.
Did you have a difficult pregnancy?
Yes, I was really sick.
Did you go home from South Carolina to stay with your mom here in Bradenton at the end of August 2017?
Yes, sir.
Did there come a time when you returned to South Carolina?
Yes.
Would you tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Ashley, why you returned to South Carolina?
I had decided that I was going to leave him. And so I went back to get my things. When he brought me down, I didn't even have like a suitcase or anything. So I went back to get my stuff. And I wrote him a note and left him a letter saying why I was leaving.
How did you feel about your personal safety when you left Doug?
I was scared.
What was it that made you uncomfortable?
It was a lot of things. It was the things that he had done, like punching our dog and shooting the gun and different things he would say and do.
And were you afraid for just you?
I was pregnant at the time. I was scared for the baby.
Ashley claimed while on the stand Doug was controlling and manipulative during their marriage. Toward the tail end of Ashley's questioning by her defense attorney while still under direct, she claims other instances where Doug allegedly placed a tracker on her car and was seen looking into the windows of her home.
Ashley, did Doug admit to placing an illegal tracker on your vehicle?
Yes, in a message to me.
Did you report that to the police?
Yes,
What was the result?
no charges.
Were there incidents, Ashley, where Doug would appear unexpectedly?
Yes, a lot.
And how would that come about? Can you give us an example?
I'd be driving down the road and I'd see him in the rearview mirror, a couple cars behind me, or he'd be right behind me. Or sometimes he would show up at places that I was, just unexpected. I'd see him, or like in the parking lot.
And was this while you were living here in Manatee?
Yes, I was living here
And where was Doug living at the time?
in South Carolina.
How could he do that?
He was driving here.
Was this also during the time that the South Carolina injunction was in place?
Both then and after as well.
Did you report those incidents to the police?
Yes,
What was the result?
no charges.
Was there an incident with a neighbor, Ashley?
Yes.
What happened? Ashley,
She,
were you present
yes,
for the incident?
yes. He was outside in the yard at night looking in the windows of my house.
What is the neighbor's name?
Marianne Croft?
And was this reported to the police?
Yes.
Did they respond?
Yes, they came out.
Was it daytime or nighttime?
It was nighttime.
In your presence, was an identification made that it was Doug?
Yes.
What was the result?
No charges.
The defense went in their line of questioning by introducing searches made on the web by Ashley, including how to co-parent with an abusive ex.
Take a look at Exhibit 4A, Ashley. What's the date?
5/11/2020.
And did you do an internet search on 5/11/23?
2020, yes.
2020 rather?
Yes.
And will you tell us what the subject you researched was?
Domestic co-parenting with an abuser.
All right, and would you go to Exhibit 4B? What's the date of 4B?
5/11/2020.
Did you do an internet search then?
Yes.
What was the subject you researched?
Ask Amanda. How do I co-parent with an abuser?
All right, and 4C?
Yes.
What's the date of 4C?
5/11/2020.
And did you do an internet search then as well?
Yes.
What was the subject?
Co-parenting versus parallel parenting with an abusive ex, the Good Men Project.
All right, and lastly, 4D. What's the date of 4D?
5/11/2020.
Did you do an internet search?
Yes.
What was the subject?
6 tips to help you co-parent with an abusive ex.
After court took a lunch break, then it was the state's turn, who quickly questioned Ashley about the allegations her husband was abusive.
I would like to just start with a couple of issues. So first, Doug Benefield never punched you ever, correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct.
Doug Benefield never choked you ever.
No,
He never kicked you.
no.
He never pointed a gun at you,
He waved a gun in my direction.
but it was not pointed at you, correct?
It was pointed at me while he was waving it at me.
He never came at you with a knife
No,
or a club
no,
or a baseball bat.
no.
As the defense first asked Ashley about the intense text messages sent by Doug within the first month of their marriage, the prosecution seemingly offered that wasn't the full context.
Okay, continue reading. All the other people.
All the other people. Then a rectangle. It makes me so sad. And then another rectangle. If I dwelt on it, I would go into rage to remove them from the earth.
And your response to that?
Yes, baby, I hate it. It hurts. He said I could defend myself, and you were easy prey for predators. You're sweet and want to please people, and they used that.
And you said, I'm sorry, and then he said,
I desire to exterminate them, and holding back is a challenge. They are rats that should be removed.
and you said,
Oh, baby, my love. Yes. Like that night, like last night, just the jerks arguing near you about put me in a sheer murderous mood, but I was stuck and I couldn't defend you. I said, thank you, baby, but I was okay. He said, but could have been a fight, etc. Only you being with me will over time remove images in my head. It is same, and knowing you were taken advantage of in my mind makes me explode with anger to take them out. God made you for me. And I said, yes, baby. He said to enjoy the beauty he did craft on earth. I see Renee as Eva's mom, not my wife. It is strange, but
can you pull that back up?
he said it is strange, but there is no emotional connection. I said, well, I'm glad. I just wish I could see it that way.
And you said, I'm glad, I wish I could see it that way. Were you talking about being jealous of his relationship with Renee?
I guess you could put it that way.
And that wasn't the only instance the prosecution seemingly argued it wasn't shown in full context. When the state questioned Ashley about the 2017 incident where Doug fired off a weapon into the couple's ceiling, the state says there was an argument that took place prior.
And you gave her a shadow box right around this time, correct?
For Christmas, so it would have been in December.
All right. And what was the shadow box?
Do you want me to describe it?
Yes.
It was like a small picture that had like deep sides, and like the glass was at the front of it. And there was a sand dollar that I had painted and decorated. And I put it on like a black cardstock. And I wrote a saying on it that said something about how like you can be strong through the storms, and that, you know, seashells are beautiful things that come out of storms.
And that shadow box is the reason you were arguing that day with Doug, correct?
I know it came up at one point. I don't know if that was the reason.
And what was the problem with the shadow box?
Eva had taken it apart and I guess had thrown out the thing that I made and was using the picture frame for something else.
What was she using the picture frame for?
She had put a rose from her mom's funeral in it.
And that upset you pretty badly, didn't it?
It made me really sad. I'd taken a lot of time to make it for her, and I thought it was special. And yeah.
You began crying,
yes,
and you dropped to the floor and sobbed hysterically.
probably.
You were so upset that she put her dead mother's rose in the shadow box.
It wasn't that. It was that she took it apart. I mean, I would have bought her another shadow box.
You went to Doug and said it was disrespectful that she took this apart.
According to Doug?
No, according to you. You went to Doug and said, she's acting disrespectfully. You need to handle her. She upset me. I'm crying.
I don't remember saying that about that.
So the day that this argument happened, you actually, at one point, were in the car with Doug, right?
Yes,
Okay, you were going to the bank and going to do some other errands.
I believe so.
And the entire time, you're upset about this shadow box.
I don't distinctly remember that, but the argument kind of came from there, I guess.
And in fact, it wasn't an argument, right? It was you being upset.
Well, he said that like life was out of control and he couldn't deal with the people at home, and he couldn't deal with the people at the ballet. And he felt like everything was just too stressful, and he was upset with everybody.
And didn't he ask you to stop?
I'm sure at some point.
And you didn't stop
I guess not.
for the car ride? No? Yes or no?
I don't remember.
And you kept telling him you need to discipline Eva.
I don't remember saying that.
And he said, let's just stop talking about this for a while. I need to think.
He was yelling at me.
So he's yelling at you, but you weren't sitting there like you are now, were you? You weren't sitting there like this.
I guess I was buckled into the car, so I probably would have been sitting further back.
And you didn't stop. And you get home, you're still arguing, correct?
He was still yelling at me, yes.
And you're not yelling at all.
As Ashley has remained adamant Doug was abusive throughout their marriage, the state questioned her on why Ashley felt safe being alone with him when he came over to help her move.
Okay, so I want to get to the night that all this happened. So you knew Doug was coming over.
Yes.
You invited him over
Yes.
to help you move stuff in the house,
Well, specifically stuff in the garage, but yes.
stuff in the garage to the truck.
Mm-hmm.
And he came to your house a couple of times. He came and then left and then came back again.
Yeah, I believe he came twice that day.
And there is a gate to your community.
Mm-hmm.
And when he's at the gate, you had to let him in.
Sometimes, because he was frequent in and out, sometimes the gate remembers license plates, and sometimes it opens, and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he would just follow people in. The gate kind of stays open for a while. But yeah, sorry.
But on this day, you weren't concerned about him coming over.
No, I knew he was coming.
Okay. And when he came over, your mother and Emerson went to the park.
I believe they were headed there. I'm not sure. I think they were down the driveway or on the sidewalk, something like that. They were on their way there.
You weren't so afraid that you wanted your mother to stay there and watch.
No, we were just packing to move.
Okay, so you weren't afraid.
I definitely didn't expect this to happen.
So it was okay with you that your mother left?
Yeah, at that time.
Okay.
But shortly after, the state had Ashley give a demonstration of the fatal shooting.
And you claim that Doug does what?
He came and slammed the door open. He was standing in the doorway. He said, "You're f***ing done."
He said, "You're done." And that made you fear for your life.
Yeah.
Can we turn the lights up, please? Thank you. So he says you're done, and you point the gun and you shoot.
I held it out in front of me first so he could see it. And I said, "Stop."
Judge, if I could have her step down so she can demonstrate.
You may.
If you could just come down. So Doug opens the door and does what?
Standing in the doorway. Kind of like this. He said, "You're done." And I held the gun out in front of me and said, "Stop." He got into this like fighting pose where he like turned sideways. And he was like moving around with his like arms in his hands. And he started like inching forward towards me.
So he why do you call it a fighting stance?
He looks like a fighter. Like I don't know, like a ninja or something, I don't know.
Okay, so he's standing there, he turns to like this and starts moving his arms around.
Like that.
Well, show me, what was he doing?
Kind of like, I don't know, he got like this, and he was like making like fighting motions. I don't know, I'm not a fighter, I don't know.
Okay.
It was scary.
Did he have his hands in fists?
Not at that point, they were like, I don't know.
Was he coming at you like this?
And he lunged at me, he came very quickly.
Okay, so he lunged. Was his fist up when he
I
lunged?
don't remember.
So you start shooting, and he does what?
He kept coming at me.
Okay, so then you keep shooting again. And he falls down on his back.
His legs went up in the air.
Okay, where do his legs go?
In the air.
How high in the air?
I don't know.
Do they go over his head?
I don't know, it's like his feet slipped out.
Okay.
And his feet and his legs went up in the air.
And were you still shooting at the time?
I don't remember.
You can have a seat. So, after this incident, you said you had swelling,
Yes, ma'am.
and that would be to the left side of your face,
Yes, ma'am.
and that would be where? Show me where.
Like in this area.
Okay. Now, I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 103. I'm going to put it up on the big screen. Can you tell me what this is?
It's a picture of me.
And when was it taken?
I have no idea.
Was this taken before you met Doug?
I believe so.
And I'm going to show you State's Exhibit 104. And I'll move it up a little bit. When was this picture taken?
I believe in October of 2020.
Wasn't it taken
Right.
on November 4th of 2020?
I believe that's correct. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
That would end the line of questioning by the state. Ashley was dismissed from the witness stand shortly after her defense team chose not to give a redirect examination. It's unclear at this time how Ashley Benefield's testimony will read to a jury, who will later have to come to the decision, was this a cold, calculated murder or an act of self-defense? The trial of Ashley Benefield is expected to continue throughout next week. If she's convicted of second-degree murder, she faces between 25 years and the rest of her life in prison. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Elizabeth Millner.